Hello, we are live. Hi, Elliot.
Hi, Maria. How you doing?
Good, all good, thank you. And hello to everyone else who is joining. Thank you so much for jumping on today. As you would have seen, we have got the lovely Elliott Manning, founder of Kayman Recruitment, which is a UK and US based rec to rec, joining us for this afternoon's episode. Fab.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for jumping on, returning the favour. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's actually on Elliott's podcast a few months ago. So.
And as I was saying just before, it's been listened to a hell of a lot. So it was a good one, that one.
Amazing. Fab. Well, today we are obviously going to do a little bit of kind of brain picking of Elliott, looking at kind of what the US market is looking like at the moment in terms of opportunities, touching on the rec to rec market. I know a lot of our clients will ask about salaries, commissions, packages, types of recruiters, but before we jump into all of that, it'd be great just to hear, Elliott, a little bit of your background when you launched Kayman Recruitment, whether you kind of went UK first, and we'll just kind of, make it a bit of a conversation, really.
Yeah, sure. So 10 years ago, set up Kayman in London, which was our main market focus. And we've been, purely sort of putting our time into a lot of the experience rec to rec market, and have done, to today's day, and eventually started doing a little bit more with grads and office support into the recruitment space, and a little bit more on the search front. So we kind of opened up different divisions. In 2018, I moved the business over to explore the US. And it was something that I always really, really wanted to do. A lot of our clients said, oh, we've got an office in New York, we've got an office in LA, in Austin and whatever. And I thought to myself that it was a good opportunity at the time to get ahead of the game if we could, and see what we could do over there. So I actually went over to New York, I reckon about 10 times in 1 year, just to keep visiting clients and just to keep making the most of the market that we could have could eventually kind of build over there. And after I built organic revenue that was generated from doing that, which I put all my time into, I started building it up from that. Obviously coming into 2020, it was a pandemic, so it slowed down a little bit, but it never stopped us from what we set out to achieve, which is building out a rec to rec function. And it was challenging. It was challenging to say the least, but to this day, it was all well worth it in the end. And a lot of challenges I faced, I do guide and speak to a lot of people about, and which I'm sure we'll go into.
Yeah, fab. So how long did you do kind of a recruit from afar from your UK office before you thought, actually, there's a big opportunity here, let's go and look for an office, get some feet on the ground in the US?
1 year.
1 year.
Amazing. 1 year. So in a 12-month period, I was establishing relationships, bringing in jobs, bringing in as much revenue as possible, so that it could automatically be pumped back into the business to then keep using it from there, which then allowed us to go and bring in some staff. And I decided at the time, and I'll jump into this, I didn't want to go through the sponsorship, the visa route. I decided to utilize existing recruiters that were based in New York, for example, that could join the business a lot quicker. And it was very interesting, to say the least, to figure out the way around it. But I found a good recruiter that was willing to come on board, jumped onto the venture of what we wanted to do, or was doing over in the US, and it was a lot quicker and a lot easier to do it that way than go through the whole visa and immigration route, which took up would have taken another 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of kind of the opportunity you found to be kind of in the US in terms of other competitors or agencies doing rec to rec, how did you kind of find entering the market and like looking at the competition, the opportunity you had? What were kind of
it wasn't very much at all, if I'm honest. There wasn't many competitors over there. A lot of people that were doing little bits in it were doing it from the UK or wherever else they may well be. But I wanted to have that physical presence over there. And I think I could probably count no more than on one hand how many people were physically in the US doing what we did. And a couple of them were US based businesses. And it was a great opportunity for us. Obviously, now we look into it, there's a few more that have gone over there and as such, but the market's so much bigger now with businesses opening up their doors in the US. So for us, we got a bit of a head start.
Yeah, fantastic. And in terms of key learnings and kind of key differences in terms of how the UK market operates, the US, would you say you had kind of any key learnings
Yeah.
from that launch in the US?
Look, yeah, in the UK, when you're building up your talent, and it's good for business owners and anyone internal talent listening to this, when you're trying to find recruiters in the US, it was so hard to establish who does what, where, and why. And a lot of
Yeah.
recruiters in the US, over here in the UK, it was all built up on 360 recruitment. So pretty much, I'd say most recruiters, 80-90% of them would have done 360 and been taught to do that. Whereas in the US, it is so different. And there's about 4 or 5 different job titles in the States that, of people that do different things. And we had to learn that. And it took a while, if I'm honest with you. And anyone that came into the business, we had to teach them that, if it says recruiter, they don't do 360 recruitment. They could just do 180 delivery.
Yeah.
If they're a sourcer, they don't even speak to the candidate. They just source them and give them to a recruiter, who then gives it to an account manager who got the jobs from a account exec, who brought the jobs in. And it's just like, wow, this is just a lot to take on and really figure out and get to grips with.
Yeah. And have you seen then UK companies that are expanding into the US adopt that model and having those different kind of titles within recruiters, or are they really transferring, I guess, kind of their DNA, their systems, processes, training, and continuing kind of that 360 or 180 model when looking at the US?
They're all using their own methods. Some businesses have gone down the split 180 model. So either recruiters are just recruiting and salespeople are just doing sales, and that's literally it. And it's as simple as that, or they're just doing 360. Most British, European recruitment companies are a 360 model, and they've all brought that over to the States, which makes hiring a lot harder for them, if I'm honest with you, and talent attraction difficult, because not everyone in the US companies do the 360 route, as I just said. So, but I've noticed that the British firms are predominantly sticking to what they know and what they can do well. What they do well over here with.
Yeah, fantastic. Amazing. And in terms of kind of sourcing that talent, a lot of our clients, again, will say, should we go with US talent first, which you've obviously shared that that's what you decided to do, or should we incubate a team here in the UK and go through that visa process? In terms of your experience of successes you've seen with businesses building their talent teams in the US, I guess it would be interesting to see what you see, the split of those doing US nationals first versus bringing UK teams, and also maybe the advantages and disadvantages that you've seen.
I think both avenues work. If you was to hire a US citizen to be the first person on the ground, and you can put your trust into them, that would work really well. But if you have someone in the UK that wants to move over there and you have the funds to be able to facilitate that, then that would be better.
Yeah.
So both will work, but that is a better route. And if you've got someone in the business that wants to go to the US, that has the the dedication to completely relocate, and wants to, and you can afford to go through the legal route of doing it, then do it. A lot of businesses that we see now, we've got someone from the UK going over there, a lot of them, if not nearly all of them. So it's very different 4 years later to when I was started over there to what it is now, and more people are open to that relocation. So if you've got someone that can do that, great, but it's still never going to prevent you from setting up in the US if you hired someone over there.
Yeah, I think there really is that kind of balance of being able to take over your own DNA and kind of the own roots of what made your UK business great, but also understanding the US is a different market. Like, you are building now a US business. So really getting that balance.
But you can always, I was going to say, sorry, like, if you've got someone in the US that's not from the UK and you want them to work in the same model, invest the time, get yourself over there, do the traveling, get them over here, get them embedded into the culture, and teach them what that looks like, rather than just kind of letting them get on with it. It's very easy to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And you've obviously got a team in New York. Yeah. How many? Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, so we've got New York, got Charlotte, and Chicago. We've kind of taken it upon ourselves to go through the remote setup, which works really well for us because there's good talent across the States. It's huge. So we're not limited on that, and we can service our clients from different time zones, if you like, which helps as well, and allows us to keep growing on that basis. But New York is our main hub, and where our office is, and where we may have majority of people, or potentially in Austin.
Yeah, amazing. And just on that point with location, so we've seen a massive kind of trend post-COVID, I think has kind of really pushed that as well in terms of companies or talent as well, actually moving from those more populous states that have been historically the likes of New York, San Francisco, obviously California as a state.
Yep.
Have you seen clients and talent start moving kind of remotely or to those kind of lower tax states for businesses?
They did. So initially I saw everyone trying to get themselves into the Austin market. And this is when it was really, really like, tax friendly and cheap. And it was a really attractive place and state to be. But eventually as I understand, it's, in my opinion, becoming a bit more saturated. And everything's changing over there where it's not as cheap as it used to be as such. And it's not, a place everyone wants to go. Then everyone started thinking, oh, Florida's great for tax. I'm going to get. So now more businesses are going over to Miami. And setting up over there, and Florida as a whole, as well as other locations. North Carolina is a great state with no tax implications, and it's got the weather and everything else people want and the good lifestyle. So in short, yes, everyone's going to those places out of a general attraction, but quicker they're all moving over there, the more saturated they're getting, and then they're trying to find the next place to be.
Yeah, that is such a good point, because people are like, oh, we'll go to Austin, recruiters are cheaper than New York. But as soon as Austin gets nice and saturated, you're then competing to keep your talent, not have people come and poach them. And, your salaries and packages are driving higher.
I'd spoken to so many businesses, and there was one as of recent, I can't say who, and they were like, oh, we're going to go to Florida. I was like, why? They're like, oh, good weather, good lifestyle, it's attractive, good. And I went, there's no talent there. For what you do, there's no talent. So why would you do that? And where are your clients? Like, oh, they're on the East Coast, I was in New York. I was like, so surely you should be there. Like, what are you trying to achieve? They're like, oh, we want to save money on tax. We want to, it's a better place to be. It's not a city. I was like, is this about business or is this more personal for you? Because if it's business, in my opinion, for the sake of a few quid here and there, be in the place where everyone is, so that you've got access to the bigger talent pools and you can grow and build your business. They've actually done that. And it's worked out well for them, but I kind of sometimes don't understand some reasoning behind it. Where I feel like it's more just a personal, attraction.
Yeah, Miami Beach.
Yeah, well, it does sound nice, doesn't it? So don't blame them.
And on that point as well, have you seen clients shift more to being open to remote talent? So when building their recruitment teams, are they looking more kind of hybrid, office-based, some completely remote? What have you seen when being briefed?
It was all about remote, and now it's gone through to hybrid models and 5 days in office. We've probably got a handful, if that, of clients. We work with over 60, 70 companies in the States. And I reckon, as I said, only a handful of them are open to remote workers. And it's, I don't mind that. I think it's great. And everyone else is like predominantly hybrid, 3-4 days in office, and it works really well. So, and then there's a couple that do like 5 days in office, and that's because that's what they prefer. And if, that's what they want, that's what they want. But, the remote is not such a popular demand anymore from us and from what we look for in our candidates.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to hear, because we heard a massive kind of change that it went so remote, but obviously like trends will change and things will kind of pull back as kind of it goes back to normal.
People are struggling with culture in the US. If you're in New York, why would you want to stuck in an apartment looking at 4 walls when you're in a city that you want to enjoy? And it doesn't make sense. So a lot of clients are like, why would they want remote and they're stuck in an apartment with no interaction? We don't want people like that in our business. And it's like, I completely agree, but, if they're a $500,000 a year biller and they're based in California and they need to be remote, but the business office is in New York, some firms are quite open to those really seriously good, talented people, and they can build around that. So, there's certain instances where it is a bit more open, but otherwise, no, remote is not a massive thing anymore.
Yeah. Okay, fab. So what I think would be great now is we've moved on to slightly more of kind of the packages, salaries, commissions, those kind of splits that you're seeing and levels. When a lot of our clients are looking into the US, they're always amazed, like, woo, bright lights, like the salaries are higher when it comes to the roles they're placing. But then when we talk to them about packages for recruiters and their internal talent, they're sometimes a bit blown away with actually some of the base salaries, some of the commission structures being slightly more generous. What have you found overall with your learnings of kind of the differences between packages and structures?
If you want to be competitive in the US and you want to compete with everyone else, and you don't want Director X headhunting your staff, in short, don't try and save yourself $5,000 here and there. It's not worth it. What we found is a lot of British companies unfortunately do not pay that well in some cases, and they try to save themselves a few quid, and it does come back, and will come back in most cases to bite them, on the backside, because we as Rec to Recs, not just us, but others will know who those companies are, and they'll go to those companies and say, look, I know that you're paid X, my client's paying you Y, 10, 20 grand more. Let's look at it. And, sometimes it might just be on a commission aspect. So, from a salary perspective, I would always say, look, I've got loads of guides and stuff, which talk about different states and what they, what the averages and salary guidelines are in what we see. So I can help with that if anyone's interested. But, just all I would say is just be competitive. Don't try and save $5,000, $10,000 here and there just to be low on the salaries. Pay what you need to pay, and you're going to retain your staff over there. It is a little bit different in the States, whereas cost of living is quite high. To live in New York is quite expensive, or any other city. So pay them what they need. And, in terms of the OTE and commission, it's not always the most, I suppose, attractive and appealing piece, in some cases. That makes sense. So salary is a bit more important in the US than the commission as such.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of things like PTO, obviously paid time off in the US, annual leave, legally there's no requirement to give it, but in the UK we've seen companies be really generous, giving 30 days, unlimited days. Do you see UK companies that are expanding into the US actually just mirror offers that they're giving in terms of PTO allowances?
Yeah, the US standard is usually like 15 days PTO plus federal, and it's like, I don't know any business really, actually I can name a few, but really most of them are predominantly giving them the same structure that they give them in the UK, so which is a standard average of 20 days or whatever. So 20 days PTO, replicate, and some of them find it amazing. Some of them might work for a company like I don't know, one of the big guns over there, like your Motions and all the big global firms in the States, and they're not given the best PTO. So when they get given 20 days, which is normal for us, they find that really appealing and incentivizing. So stick to what you do in the UK. It works out well. And a few days here and there is not going to make a difference to you as a business. Yeah,
definitely. And I'd also say on the kind of benefits piece as well, obviously employee sponsored healthcare plans and benefits all privatized in the US. So it is definitely worth any kind of UK recruiters or founders speaking with specialists to advise on what is an attractive package. How are you going to retain talent? Not actually just giving that minimum contribution into a healthcare pot to make sure they're competitive.
Yeah, like the 75% is the standard over there in contribution. But again, for the sake of $100 here and there, you might as well give them 100% contribution and just get it covered and dealt with. Yeah. And it's another incentive that does differentiate you from everybody else. So it is worth it. The deal size and the deal values over there are so much far more greater. You're going to make it back. So as long as they're doing their job well, that $100 here and there, $1,000 a year, you're not going to notice it that much. And unless if you're going to be that greedy, you're going to lose the staff to other competitors that will do it.
Yeah, definitely. And then just kind of changing gears slightly to more of the BD side. So obviously you guys are very well established. You've got a great name in the rec to rec market. So I imagine you get a lot of client referrals and inbounds. But in terms of key differences you found when maybe BD and UK clients to then shifting gears and looking at the US market, what have you found in your experience has worked well, hasn't worked so well, that maybe has been surprising to see in the US market?
Look, I ask this question to business owners every day, and on the podcast that I do, this is one of the biggest questions I ask is how do you do it? What do you do? And what's different? And every single time they have the same question is to be able to deliver. Can you deliver to your client? Do you have what they want? And if so, they're going to be your best friends. I know that's something that you could probably replicate, and it's the same in the UK, but the US is all about relationships. So if you call up a US business and they're asking you for CVs. Don't talk to them and give them false hope that they won't work with you again, because the competition is so high over there and there's so much of it that they want to work with. This relationship building. Once you've got one or two things on the way with them, then they will give you everything. Genuinely, they will give you everything, and they will work with you on, maybe an RPO or different projects or whatever it is that you need as a business. So don't do the BD with the view that, you want the business without being able to deliver it. If you've got one for it, get it in front of them, because they know that you're actually true to your word. So that's really important in the States. I've seen that, and everyone's told me the same thing when I go through that with them.
Yeah. And on that point as well, with kind of winning business, the relationship piece being a really key part in terms of kind of face-to-face versus virtual relationships you have with clients. Obviously, the US is huge, and it really is like 50 different countries. I mean, it's testament to you that you did 10 trips in a year. But in terms of the amount of time you guys spend face-to-face with clients versus being able to win clients and maintain relationships virtually, have you seen that have an impact, or kind of a greater kind of strength being face-to-face and like on the ground in the US?
It's the main impact for us, being able to sit in front of a client and be old school with it and say to them, look, this is who we are, this is who I am, and this is what we can do, and this is how we're going to do it, and here's someone for you, and being able to deliver on it. So yes, and again, I've asked other recruitment businesses the same thing. Are you going to go to more events? Are you going to go to more go and network? You're going to make more trips and go and meet? All of them would say yes. It's worth the investment. It's worth actually doing that, and it takes you away from sitting there doing video calls and phone calls, for the sake of a couple of grand investment on a flight in a hotel is worth it, because you'll make that back in the long run tenfold. So go and meet them. I've actually met businesses that sat down and said to me as a rector, you're the first rector we've ever met. We've spoken to so many, but we've never actually met them. And I was like, okay, well, it's good to know, obviously, but it was well worth the effort, because we done a placement with them a month later, and it works out well.
Yeah, amazing. And on that side as well, placement fees, obviously in the US, we're all aware of the opportunity in terms of the fees you can charge. One question we do get asked quite a lot is where we've got UK clients working the UK market, and then they are looking at expanding into the US, and they see, hey, these guys have also got offices in the US. How do you work in terms of, do you charge them, your US fees? Do you honor UK fees? How do you kind of shift between clients that have UK and US presence and what you're charging them?
We're a little bit more stricter in the US in how we do this. So for us, if we work with a UK firm and they've got an office in the US, we stick to the same terms. We do give them a US-based contract with US law that it replicates our UK anyway. So we kind of keep it level in that sense. But companies that we work with predominantly in the US, they're expected to be charged more than we would charge someone in the UK. So for example, if the average fee charged in the UK is 20%, in some industries, we would be charging 25 in the US to these businesses. If they try to counter that and take us down to, let's just say 15, then it's not worth the business. They're not worth it. They're also not necessarily thought of in high regard on their side for their market and so forth. So, just kind of, there's plenty more opportunities out there to walk away. So we just walk away from it. But the same in any industry, like you can charge 30% in the US and get away with it genuinely. They're used to it because of the way it works over there, because the salaries are so much higher. The fees can be a lot higher as well.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen more and more clients say that they just walk away now. And you think, oh, you're walking away from 20%. Like, that's an amazing fee that you might see in the UK. But they're just saying, because they can share terms of businesses and not have clients really bat an eyelid or challenge, they can be doing the same amount of work, getting much higher fees because your salaries are higher. So
they'll pay for it. It goes back to what I said before. Like, if you're going to go and bring on a new business, but you can actually deliver to it, and you can show them that you can deliver to it, they'll pay you whatever they need to pay you, because it's very quality and relationship focused. But if you're just going in there to do it for the sake of it, it's not worth it. And if they're coming back at you and saying, "Oh, we're not going to pay you that. We don't think it's worth it," we don't tend to just bother with it anymore. Which is a good position to be in. But the US is so big, and there's so many states and opportunities, it doesn't really faze us. Whereas London's just one place. Sometimes we've got to be cautious of how we approach it.
Yeah, definitely. And just wrapping up on kind of the rec to rec market, in terms of trends you'll see, I know you've mentioned kind of you're opening new offices. Have you seen kind of any big talent partners kind of move to new locations, to the East Coast, West Coast, Denver, we keep hearing a lot about? Have you seen kind of any big trends or big names emerging?
The main place we've seen a lot more of is Florida, is a bit, and North Carolina. You know, those two places are where a lot of businesses are aiming to go. The salary, so North Carolina, for example, like the living costs there are a lot lower than most places. The weather's great. You know, the tax is excellent. There's actually quite a good amount of recruitment businesses over there already. More corporate companies are moving their bases over there as well at the same time. And it's cheaper on some salaries aspects as well. So, you know, just because the cost of living is a lot lower. Whereas Florida, for example, as well as it's tax beneficial for these businesses that we keep going over there, salaries are still high because the cost of living is so high, and it's expensive in Miami, for example. So it doesn't make a difference. But yeah, Miami and North Carolina are the two main places.
Yeah, amazing. Fab. Well, for the last 5 minutes, I just thought it would be great to spend some time talking about one of your newest ventures and businesses that you launched. Was it 2001 you launched iGuide?
Yeah, I did, yeah. It was a business to set up to save a lot of more hassle, I suppose, for a lot of businesses.
A lot of emails and phone calls that you were getting.
Yeah. I get a lot of calls, a lot of emails like, who did you use for PEO? Who did you use for, you know, an account? Who did you use for contracts? Who did you use for an office and phones and insurances? And I was just giving information out constantly. And when I set up, I had to get a lot of this from clients that I knew, you know, and had to do the sort of research into market myself. So I decided to just put it all in one place on iGuide, and, you know, it allowed business owners to just go on iGuide. It's step by step, and it literally has everything on there, from incorporating your business to immigration to working with companies like yourselves at PGC to then working with, you know, finding an office in different states. And it's got all the contacts on there, so it just makes things a lot easier. So if you've got an operations person that's sitting there and wanting to help you with your infrastructure in the US, put them on iGuide, it will be done within like a week, you know, of getting it set up. And it just saved me having to put a lot of time, you know, into conversations with people when it was just, you know, all on there. And it, a lot of recruitment businesses don't have the time to kind of go through the market. They want to get things done now. They're impatient, so it helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes there's too much information out there. Like if you were to just Google setting up a business in the US, like really, where do you start? So obviously you've been kind enough to show us iGuide, and it is a phenomenal platform. And as you say, you know, any operations executives, heads of ops, finance that are looking at what it looks like to expand your business physically into the US, costs, contacts, even considerations. I think sometimes some businesses don't know what they don't know. So really just showing them these are the key considerations to think about, and these are trusted advisors to speak of. So would just say to any businesses that are looking at expanding into the US, like absolutely iGuide is a fantastic resource to look at, have that step-by-step guide to kind of get you set up and introduce you to key contacts. So
thank you. If anyone's got any questions, just let me know. But ultimately it's just it's convenience. You know, we all want things to be convenient and efficient, and that's what it allows everyone to be or if they want to get themselves stateside. And I mean, I vetted everyone on there and qualified everyone on there, and I do on a weekly basis. So if it's not on there, I'll find it for you. You know, it's not a problem.
And what have you seen kind of timelines wise from people kind of setting up and joining iGuide to maybe launches, a realistic kind of time frame for a business to think about a launch into the US?
A good example, I had a company that reached out to me and paid for iGuide in April, May. They took about a month or so to get things sorted out, gave me put a retainer on Kayman to get their first US person on the ground, and they've got that person and the business operating from the 1st of November. So it was that quick. And, you know, I guided them through the whole process, and we then found them the right person to help them with their, you know, first person on the ground who was originally from the West Coast and from the States. So we had the network and whatnot, and it worked out really well. So I'd probably say within 6 months you could have it up and running, ready to go, and someone started working for you. But probably it could also be done in lesser time as well.
Amazing. Save a big headache for someone sat there scrolling the internet for some advice. So absolutely, just to wrap up, any questions you might have, follow-up questions for Elliott, please feel free to reach out to Elliott, whether it be about recruiting your staff into the US or UK, looking at expansion, any questions on iGuide, again, please feel free to reach out to Elliott or myself. I think you can see from the last half an hour that Elliott has a wealth of knowledge and experience, like hands-on in the US. So really, thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you very much. It's been look, if anyone needs anything, just reach out and let us know. The US is an interesting market, and it's a really good place to be right now. Especially, I've never ever seen in the last 4 years or so of doing it been so busy. So it's a good time to get involved.
Huge opportunity. Fab. Well, thank you so much, Elliott. Have a good rest of the afternoon, and I'll hopefully catch you stateside.
You will do. Thank you very much. You take care.
Cool. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.